In today's modern age, we often believe that strict laws and advanced technology protect us from harm. However, there is a major threat that can turn lives upside down, and that is identity theft. Imagine someone stealing your personal information and using it without your consent. This malicious act can cause chaos in your life, affecting your finances, reputation, and even your mental well-being. Fortunately, timely actions can prevent this from devastating a victim's entire life. But in one of the most unfortunate cases, a man found himself in prison and a mental hospital for crimes he didn't commit. For 30 years, another person lived under his identity completely unnoticed. Now, that sounds scary. Yet, this actually happened in 2019 with William Woods, a man who was living a homeless life in Los Angeles. A simple and ordinary life for him was turned into a nightmare when he realized that he was the victim of a scary identity theft, in which someone was using his identity to gather a huge amount of unauthorized debt in his name. This discovery shattered his sense of security and left him with a challenging task to prove his innocence and reclaim his life. During homeless days in Los Angeles, William Wood noticed that someone was using his identity to gather a huge amount of unauthorized debt. William took proper action when he found out his identity had been stolen. He went to the bank to report the fraudulent activity and asked to close the fake accounts opened in his name. After checking the accounts and finding huge amounts of money in there, the authorities needed some answers, and here's where things just backfired for him. He provided the right identification as William Woods, but could not get some security answers right, which created suspicion at the bank. The bank employee then called Matthew David Kierans, who had given his phone number at the accounts, and he answered the security questions correctly. The whole case portrayed that Williams was lying about his identity, and the police were called on site to sort the matters legally. Even Matthew David Kierans got there at this moment, and the real person was accused of identity theft and false impersonation. This is when the real Woods was arrested and charged with identity theft and false impersonation. If you people are thinking, who is this Matthew Kierans, then let me tell you something. He was the real suspect and behind this entire scene. This was not the first interaction of Woods and Kierans. This all started when William Woods and Matthew Kierans were working together at a hot dog cart in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the late 1980s. On the surface of it all, everything seemed normal, but Matthew was a clever criminal waiting to take advantage whenever he seemed fit. This is when William realized why he had become homeless over the years. Every time he tried to get a job or open any accounts, the records showed a shady past that involved dozens of illegal activities. Just imagine that someone uses your identity for 30 years and lives a calm life while you're left in the streets. After getting arrested, things were about to get even worse for Williams. He went through several trials and was getting everything against him. He was facing all these hardships and struggles for something he was not even aware of. In February 2020, when he tried to prove that he was actually telling the truth, a Californian judge declared that he was not mentally fit to stand trial and sent him to a mental state hospital where he received psychotropic medication and other mental health treatment. It was clear that things were not looking so good for him. On the other hand, Matthew Kierans had been using his identity since 1990. He had built a whole life out of it that included a family and a career, all while evading detection. He even went as far as using a genealogy website to get William's family history and fraudulently got a hold of his birth certificate. This new identity allowed Kierans to secure a job at the University of Iowa Hospital and take out loans totaling over $200,000. Here, it is important to note that Kierans is not someone ordinary. He had a criminal background as well. He had run away from home when he was 16 and was traveling across the country stealing cars and performing all sorts of crimes without getting caught. Even after stealing William's identity, he continued with the illegal activities. In 1991, he fraudulently acquired an identification card from Colorado with Wood's name and birthday. There, he went on to get different jobs at fast food restaurants and opened a bank account. Matthew bought a car for $600 using that account with 2 checks of $300 that were bounced. But he didn't care. Matthew drove in this allegedly stolen car to Idaho, where he abandoned it to start another chapter. At the same time, an arrest warrant was issued in Colorado for Wood's name. From there on, his new identity even helped him get a job where he was able to make $700,000, and he even got married and started a whole new life in a new place. Now, things were starting to look pretty good for Matthew. A major reason for Matthew to go unnoticed was that he had a wife and a son with a stolen identity that were named after Woods. He used false documents like fabricated identification, including social security numbers and other official documents, to maintain the illusion of being Woods. As a result of all the illegal activities that Kierans was doing, William had to spend 428 days in jail and 147 days in mental hospital with a $400 fine and in order to never use William Woods' name ever again. After spending quite some tough time in jail, he was released at a no-contest plea. But luckily, he did not give up on getting justice. William was never going to stop until he got his name cleared. He reached out to University of Iowa Hospital where Matthew was still working, and this decision was the first step in getting justice. He took steps to address the situation and reached out to the Heartland Police Department in Wisconsin, but no one was ready to believe him. William did some research and found that the person impersonating him was working at the hospital. So he reached out to the hospital's security department, and they found some truth in it. So they got the local police involved. The real deal started when a detective involved in Woods' complaint to the University of Iowa Hospital started an investigation that included a DNA test. It involved Woods and the biological father listed on his birth certificate and conclusively proved that he was the man's son. When the court confronted Matthew, he still tried to dodge the law by pointing out that Williams was mentally unstable. But he was left speechless when confronted with the DNA test results. He had no option but to accept his wrongdoings, and this was finally the end for his illegal endeavors. He had no option but to accept his tragic fate ahead, as all his previous records were coming forward now. Kierans was first sentenced for 20 days in Johnson County for using someone else's birth certificate in August 2023. On August 29, Kierans faced several complaints in federal court. He was charged on December 12 with 5 counts of lying to a federally insured credit union and 2 counts of using someone else's identity without permission, and pleaded guilty to 1 count of each charge. On December 12, he was then indicted on 5 counts of giving false statements to National Credit Union Administration and pleaded guilty on 1 count, earning him imprisonment for 32 years. These charges were a result of his decades-long impersonation of William Woods, during which he fraudulently obtained loans and employment, among other things, using Woods' identity. The exact sentence would be determined by a judge considering factors such as the nature of the crimes, their impact on the victim, and any mitigating or aggravating circumstances. As of the last update, a sentencing date had not been set yet. So the exact length of Kierans' prison term would be finalized at his sentencing hearing. The news of losing Kierans had struck his family and friends. They started sending letters to the court and described him as a kind and trustworthy person and a good father. Even his wife mentioned that she knew him for 30 years and she believed that Matthew's motive for all those crimes was to simply create a family and home he never had. The adult son also claimed himself to be the son of Matthew Kierans, who was first known as William Woods, and mentioned that no matter what happened, he was a dad to him. This whole case highlights the challenges victims face when their identity is stolen. Woods' efforts to reclaim his identity led to his wrongful arrest and commitment to a mental hospital where he was forcibly medicated. Even though Kierans eventually pleaded guilty to federal charges of making false statements, and aggravated identity theft brings some closure to this case, it also underscores the lasting impact of identity theft on victims. This whole ordeal highlights significant flaws in how identity theft cases are handled and the need for more robust protections for the victims. In today's time and era, it's important to note that identity theft and similar crimes related to the online world are on a rise. To safeguard against these outcomes, individuals should regularly monitor financial accounts for suspicious activity, use strong and unique passwords for online accounts, avoid sharing personal information on public platforms, shred sensitive documents before discarding, and be cautious of unsolicited emails or calls requesting personal information. Additionally, consider using identity theft protection services for added security. Leave a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, take care.